What's going on, Not Move Nation? Today is October 20th at 2:44 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm here with JB Sport Talk, and we are going to break down the two Monday Night Football games tonight. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Detroit Lions. Ivan, hello. Welcome. Good to see you.
Let's go.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Detroit Lions, and we have the Houston Texans at Seattle Seahawks. What's good, Carlos?
What's
Glad
up?
to see both of you. Hope you guys are having a great day. So let's start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Detroit Lions game. Detroit leads the all-time series 33-30 against Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield has a 2-2 career record against Detroit. That includes the playoffs. And then Jared Goff has a 3-2 career record against Tampa Bay. That includes the playoffs. Oh, I know, Ivan. Tyler Algier last night. I saw him go down there late in the game. Okay, so Detroit was favored by 5.5 when I looked earlier this week. I saw the line at 6.5. Now I'm seeing that it's at 6. The over-under way early this week, I think about Tuesday or so. Over-under was at 52.5. Now I'm seeing it at 53.5. Tampa Bay carries a 5-1 record into this matchup. Detroit carries a 4-2 record. Let's go check out some weather. I don't see any weather issues for this game. And then let's go check on the injuries. Mike Evans, questionable, but is likely to play Monday night against the Lions. I'm looking at the FanDuel Daily Fantasy app. I think they do a great job with player injury updates. So Mike Evans looks like he is good to go. And then Abuka, I'm seeing that he's questionable, but has a real chance to play, is what they're saying on here. So I would definitely, check to see if he is playing after the show, if you're interested in this game, and to see if he's limited in any capacity as well. It looks like he's dealing with a hamstring issue. Both of those guys that I just talked about, by the way, are wide receivers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Bucky Irving, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is out. So Rashad White should continue to operate as the main option out of that backfield for the Buccaneers. Chris Godwin out, Jalen McMillan out. Those are other wide receivers for Tampa Bay, but they've pretty much been out for the whole season. Godwin's only played 2 games, and I don't think McMillan's played at all. So those look like the major injury updates. JB, what are your first initial thoughts on this matchup? Is there anything that you're looking forward to in particular? Are there any players that you're looking to target? Are there any players that you think are going to stand out in this game? What are your first thoughts?
Mm. Um.
I mean, Baker's been
I
playing out of his mind, right?
yeah. Baker's been playing out of his mind. I think Detroit's gonna kind of be on like a little redemption thing. From last week. They're obviously pretty salty about that still. Um.
You're welcome.
But
Man.
you know, Tampa Bay, it kind of seems like the Detroit Lions of last year with being injured.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but they've been able to get it done, and Baker looks like the MVP of the league right now, right? Um, after they are going to be without Branch this week, Detroit in the secondary. I don't know how big of a impact that's really going to be for them. Um, I just don't. I see Baker get having his way. Detroit, if I remember correctly, was pretty bad in the secondary in yards given up, especially the tight ends. I think
Yeah, last year, man. Last year they were terrible. It looks like they've cleaned it up a little bit, though. They do rank 14th this season in passing yards allowed per game, and that was before the week started. So they're about average in regards to yardage gained or allowed, excuse me, yardage allowed through the air.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, they're pretty similar on defense. I mean, they're actually a really similar team. Points per game. Detroit, I mean, they're 31.8. They're ranked second, whereas Tampa's 27.5 at sixth. But yards per game, Detroit's 10th, Tampa's 12th or 11th, excuse me. Time of possession, dude, it's just seconds. That's different. They both do a pretty good job of running that clock out and also committing turnovers. Yeah, I like ultimately Tampa Bay in this first look. I think Otten could really excel. The one thing that sucks is that they got Buka is
Looks like your mic cut out.
oh
I
yeah,
can't-
they're kind of banged up at wide receiver.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Abuka. Um, yeah, Ivan. So I see the comment here. He's already locked in Baker Mayfield rush attempts at 3.5. Gibbs for 24.5 receiving yards. I like the Gibbs receiving yards. So Gibbs has gone over that in 3 out of 6 games this season. He went over that in 11 out of 18 games in 2024. He's gone over that in 1 out of 2 career games against Tampa Bay. To be honest with you, I like Jahmyr Gibbs receptions a little bit more over the 3.5, but I could see them both hitting, Ivan. Um, so Tampa Bay, let's talk about Tampa Bay's pass defense for a second. Tampa Bay ranks 21st in passing yards allowed per game. They rank 5th in rushing yards allowed per game. So their pass defense is much more vulnerable than their rush defense. All right. And Tampa Bay ranks 3rd worst before the season started, 3rd worst in receiving yards allowed to running backs, 3rd worst in receptions allowed to running backs. All right. So when I'm looking at the Jahmyr Gibbs receiving yards versus receptions, I do see better current data with the receiving yards. He's gone over the receiving yards, like I said, 3 out of 6 times this season, 11 out of 18 games in 2024. The receptions, he only went over in 2 out of 6 games this season and only 9 out of 18 games in 2024. But the only difference between the two is that he's played 2 career games against Tampa Bay. He's gone over that receiving line in one of those games, but he went over those 3.5 receptions in both of those games. So, like I said, you can make a case really for either play. And something else that we can do here, Ivan, is look at I don't know how beneficial this would be, but I'm looking at the target share on this Detroit Lions offense, and he ranks 4th on this team in target share. Receiving yards, 112 throughout the season. Like I said, man, I can see them both happening, but I have to lean towards the receptions first, just because he's gone over that in 2 out of 2 career games against Tampa Bay instead of the 1 out of 2 with the receiving yards. But and then Montgomery, he's somebody else to talk about. Last that I checked, his over under on receiving yards was 8.5. Receptions was 1.5. He's gone over the receiving yards in 4 out of 4 career games against Tampa Bay. And he did very well going over that receiving line in 2024. He went over that in 11 out of 15 games in 2024. The receptions, he doesn't have as good of history. He went over that in 9 out of 15 games, and the 1.5 receptions for Montgomery. He went over that in 9 out of 15 games in 2024, and then only 3 out of 4 career games against Tampa Bay, which is still good. But I like the fact that he's played 4 career games against Tampa Bay and has gone over that 8.5 receiving line in all of those games. So Out of all of these plays that we just talked about there, Gibbs and Montgomery receiving yards or receptions, my favorite play out of all of that is going to be the Montgomery receiving yards, over 8.5 receiving yards. Statistically, that is more favorable than any other props that I see out of those four. But let's backtrack a little bit. I was also thinking Monty for receptions betters. Is that plus money, 1.5? Oh, yeah, Montgomery. I would lean more towards his receiving yards, and then Gibbs's receptions, because both of them are 100% to the over in career games against Tampa Bay. And, we mentioned that yesterday with who was it? Davante Adams. There was another guy too, Keenan Allen. Both of them had very favorable history against their opponents, and they got the job done again yesterday. Adams didn't get his receiving yards, I don't believe, but Keenan Allen did great. Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit here. Let's talk about Tampa Bay for a second. So I'm looking at their schedule, right? Yeah, I think it's really impressive that Tampa Bay has been winning these games without some of their star players, and I think that comes back to bite them tonight. I think that, when you're playing a team like Detroit, in my opinion, Detroit's one of the top tier teams in the league. And when you're playing a team like that, you almost certainly have to be fully healthy. And when I'm looking at Tampa Bay's schedule, they've beaten Atlanta. They barely beat Atlanta. They barely beat Houston. They barely beat the Jets. They barely beat the Seahawks. And then they beat San Francisco last week by 11. But they lost to Philadelphia. And I think Detroit is arguably, better than Philadelphia, if not really close. So I have to lean towards Detroit in this game, and that's just one reason why. Let me go through some other reasons here. Okay, so Tampa Bay has a slight passing advantage in my eyes here. Tampa Bay ranks 7th in passing yards per game. Detroit ranks 14th. But Detroit's pass defense is better. It's really close, to be honest with you. And I could be wrong on that assessment. Maybe Detroit has the passing advantage tonight, considering the injuries to the wide receiving corps for this Buccaneers offense. So, I think that's kind of a coin flip there on who has the advantage in the passing game. But I do give Detroit an advantage in the rushing game. They rank 8th in rushing yards per game. Tampa Bay, I mentioned earlier, ranks 5th in rushing yards allowed per game. But Tampa Bay ranks 20th in rushing yards per game, and Detroit ranks 11th in rushing yards allowed per game. So, I'm giving Detroit the slight advantage there. I give Tampa Bay a slight third down conversion advantage. I give Detroit a good-sized red zone conversion advantage. Detroit ranks 4th in red zone conversion rate. So when they are getting into the red zone, which, by the way, they're getting there before the week started, they rank 2nd in red zone attempts per game. So they get there often. And when they do get there, they are converting touchdowns. And Tampa Bay, when teams are entering the red zone against Tampa Bay, they are letting up touchdowns. Tampa Bay ranks 28th in opponent red zone conversion rate. So, Detroit, I wouldn't be surprised to see them get to the red zone often and converting touchdowns. I also give Detroit a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage. I know last week is just 1 week, but teams were 10-3 when I saw a sacks advantage for that team last week. They were 10-3, and I give Detroit a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage here and a slight turnover differential advantage. Overall, I like Detroit in this one. If we'll talk about the next game here in a minute, but I do think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even without some of these players, are a better team, obviously, than the Houston Texans. But if I were to have to go with an underdog tonight, I'd be leaning towards Houston. But We'll talk about that game here in a minute, but I'm leaning towards Seattle in that one as well. So we can talk about some player props here. Um, the biggest positional defensive vulnerability, and don't let those words confuse you. And I'm not trying to say you guys are not intelligent, but sometimes maybe the verbiage can be a little bit intimidating, or you might not know what it means. But when I say the biggest positional defensive vulnerability, I'm comparing that to the other teams in the league at that position. So, for instance, you may see that Detroit allows 300 passing yards per game. I don't know what they allow at the top of my head, but you may see that they allow 300 passing yards per game and only, 50 receiving yards to running backs per game. But relative to the other teams in the league, they may rank in that passing yards per game. They may rank, 15th, middle of the pack. And then according to even though they're allowing a lot less receiving yards to running backs, they may allow the most out of every team in the league. So that's kind of what I'm saying whenever I'm talking about biggest positional defensive vulnerability. Okay. So Tampa Bay's biggest positional defensive vulnerabilities are receiving yards allowed to running backs, like we were just talking about, Ivan, and receptions allowed to running backs. We've already covered that. All right. So I know St. Brown and Williams are going to be players that people are possibly looking to target tonight. So Tampa Bay ranks 21st in opponent yards per completion. So they are slightly below average in letting up a good chunk of yardage when teams are passing the ball against them. Jameson Williams ranked seventh best before the week started, seventh best in the NFL in yards per catch. So I could see Jameson Williams getting, maybe one, two, multiple big gains through the air. Last that I checked, his over under on receiving yards was 44 and a half. He went over that in 2 out of 6 games this season. 10 out of 16 games in 2024, and he's gone over that in 2 out of 3 career games against Tampa Bay. He's had 1 touchdown in 1 out of 3 career games against Tampa Bay. Also worth noting, Tampa Bay ranks 10th worst. Before the week started, they allowed the 10th most receiving yards to wide receivers. My concern with taking a Detroit Lion receiver or receiving back in this game is that the Detroit Lions rank 29th in passing play percentage. So there are only a couple of teams, 3 or 4 teams, that call a higher percentage of rushing plays than Detroit. So Detroit really likes to zone in on that run, but Detroit, I think they plays per game. I think they run a lot of plays per game. So let me check that real quick. If a team, runs a lot of plays per game, then I'm less concerned about that. They were up there last season. They ranked 21st this season, but that would be my only concern with taking a receiving back or a wide receiver for the Lions. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, over under 74.5 receiving yards, went over that in 3 out of 6 games this season, only 7 out of 18 games in 2024, but he's gone over that line in 3 out of 3 career games against Tampa Bay. He has scored a touchdown in 2 out of 3 games, 2 out of 3 career games against Tampa Bay. And red zone target share, pretty sure he does really well in regards to red zone target share. So he's played 1 less game since this is a Monday night football game. He's played 1 less game than pretty much every team in the league. And he has had the 3rd most targets in the red zone in the entire NFL. So that just kind of tells you how important this guy is to this Detroit Lions red zone offense. So I think it's a pretty good spot for Amon-Ra St. Brown tonight. Receiving yards and maybe an anytime touchdown. Okay. Luis Rodriguez just says, I just put 100 on the Texans. Am I cooked? I think the Texans have a better chance of covering and or winning than the Buccaneers tonight. But we'll get in that game here in just a second. JB, out of all the players that I just listed for Detroit, who do you said you were leaning towards Tampa Bay in this one. Which one do you
Yeah.
feel like is the biggest threat tonight? Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably. Jahmyr Gibbs.
I don't know, because Amon-Ra got shut down by a rookie last week in Kansas City, completely shut down. And I don't know. I don't think Amon-Ra is really that dude. Amon-Ra, I know, wrote down all them wide receivers and reasons and teams why he's 29 reasons, 42 reasons why he's better and prove it, but third round rookie just shut you down, buddy. So I like Jahmyr Gibbs for real. I like Jahmyr Gibbs to go off. I like what's his face too. The other running back.
David Montgomery.
Yeah, Montgomery. I like those two. And I think this could be a game where you see I think JMO Williams, I think you'll see him actually be the one, I think, in the secondary that would come out and try out. Yeah, that's what I think.
I also just want to, give you guys a little bit more information about that Amon-Ra St. Brown anytime touchdown stuff. He does lead the team out of all the positional players in touchdowns for the Lions. So you also got that working for you if you were thinking about taking him for an anytime touchdown.
Yeah, he does lead with
touchdown props are pretty risky, but I think this is probably a really good spot to target if you're looking for anytime touchdowns is somebody for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that's a good one because he does have he monsters all of them in receiving. Tesla might be a good one too tonight.
Yeah.
He was pretty quiet last week. And they play who? They play, man, I don't
Detroit.
Yeah, I don't know.
They played KC last week.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla. So it's tougher for me to pinpoint player props on rookies, guys, because I don't have the history and whatnot. But that's always an option. I think, my favorite player prop out of this entire slate and possibly out of the day is Jared Goff passing yards. Last that I saw, it was at 260.5. Okay. Tampa Bay before the week started, allows the 9th most passing yards to quarterbacks. Jared Goff, he's only gone over that in 1 out of 5 games this season, and he did go over that in 11 out of 18 in 2024. But he's gone over that in 5 out of 5 career games against Tampa Bay. So that's the best historical data that I've seen throughout the day-to-day. Also, Jared Goff had his single game passing records against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2019. He threw for 517 yards, which is the 9th most passing yards in an NFL game throughout NFL history. So historically, Jared Goff is balling against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he's that dude.
Mm-hmm. And he's got the weapons to get it done. My only concern is that, Detroit just gets ahead early in this game and just runs the ball. But, I feel comfortable that Tampa Bay can hang around for a little bit. You know what I mean? And maybe throughout the whole game. And, Detroit wins by like 7 points or something like that. But let's talk about Tampa Bay a little bit. So the Detroit Lions' biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. So imagine if Tampa Bay, especially with the way that Baker Mayfield's playing this year, imagine if Tampa Bay had all of their receivers healthy for this game. And they're going up against the Detroit Lions, who, that's their biggest positional defensive vulnerability, receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. And it still could be problematic for them tonight. Mike Evans.
Right.
Mike Evans, over under 63.5 receiving yards. He hasn't gone over that this season. He's 0 for 3. He did go over that in 9 out of 15 games in 2024, and he's only gone over that in 2 out of 6 career games against Detroit. So the history just isn't there for me to feel confident in that play. But, when I'm looking at that and also when I'm looking at target share, he's tied for second on this team in target share, but I feel like that number could be a little skewed because did he miss any time? Yeah, he's only played 3 games this season. So, Abuka, I think he's pretty much played. That's when you start got to look into each individual game log and see how many how many games these guys have played. Abuka's played 6 compared to Mike Evans' 3, but Evans has 27 total targets compared to Abuka's 42. So I feel like maybe Evans could be that target share leader tonight as well. You could also go into like box scores and stuff to see who was the guy that Baker was targeting when both of these guys were playing in a game. Let's see if both of them were in last week. No, doesn't look like Evans was, but I think that is important information here. Let me try to find a game where they both played in the same game. JB, while I'm doing that, who do you think has the biggest chance for success tonight for the Tampa Bay wide receiving corps? For me, it's really up in the air between Evans and Abuka.
Well, is Abuka playing tonight?
Yeah, so I'm seeing that he has a real chance to play. So he is questionable, and that's definitely news to keep up with. And I'm also seeing that even if he does play, he could operate with some restrictions. So this could be, a huge game for Mike Evans.
Yeah.
If he is limited.
I see it being more Mike Evans, like you said, because of Abuka with his injury. I don't if he plays, I don't see him making it all the way through. Are they they're playing in Detroit, so it shouldn't be as hot out there or humid out there. I like Otten to have some success tonight. I like Mike Evans as always.
Man.
And I would say probably yeah. That's what I'm gonna go with, Otten and Evans.
I would say Abuka, man. If he's not limited, and even if he is somewhat limited, I think he could be in a really good spot here. And the main reason being is because Detroit allows a good amount of yardage every time their opponent completes a pass. And before the week started, Abuka ranked 5th best in the NFL in yards per catch. So he's getting big gains against a team that's allowing big gains through the air. So, and that's significantly different from Mike Evans, who ranks 93rd in yards per catch. So I feel like Mike Evans is more that, possession guy, and Abuka is that explosive guy. And Detroit's looks like they've been allowing some explosive plays through the air. The next guy, Sterling Shepard ranks 43rd on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team in yards per catch. He ranks, second best on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in yards per catch. So I could see him possibly doing good. But I think it really comes down to, Is Ibuka going to play? Is he going to be limited? Even if he is limited, once again, I could see him getting a couple of long gains, maybe, one or two long gains. But yeah, right now I'm going to have to lean towards Mike Evans, and then Ibuka, and then Sterling Shepard. But
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Evans, uh, Otten, and Shepard. Abuka, I'm just not. I just don't see it with his. I mean, them hammies.
mhm. So Cade Otton, last that I checked, his over under, which is the tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, guys. I'm sure you guys know. But yeah, Cade Otton, last that I checked, over under 37.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in 2 out of 6 games this season, 7 out of 15 games in 2024, and only 1 out of 3 career games against Detroit. Also worth mentioning, Detroit, before the week started, did not rank in the top 10 or bottom 10 in receiving yards allowed to tight ends. So they're, about average in that regard. So they had bigger vulnerabilities at different positions. But they did rank 10th best, Detroit's defense, in receptions allowed to tight ends. So if I were to lean towards Otten's receptions versus his receiving yards, I would, have to lean towards his receiving yards, just based on the statistics here. I also just want to mention Baker Mayfield. Last that I checked, over under 250.5 passing yards. He's only gone over that in 1 out of 4 career games against Detroit. Now, things can happen. Just because a player, it may be 0 for 10 against a team historically, doesn't mean that they can't get it that next game. But, I just wanted to give you guys that piece of information and kind of let you make the call. So, you mentioned something about rushing attempts. Let's see. Ibuka props aren't even out yet on FD, just in case Otten and Mike Evans reviving for Tampa. Yeah, that's another good look, man. That's another good angle. Is like if Ibuka is limited or is out, that should open up some more opportunity for Cade Otton. Yeah, definitely, Jimmy. Okay, so I think I saw Ivan mention Betters is taking Mayfield's rushing yards at 18.5, 19.5 a good idea. So, once again, Detroit's defense wasn't ranked in the top 10 or bottom 10 at the start of the week in rushing yards allowed to quarterback. So they're about average in that regard. Baker Mayfield has gone over that 18.5 rushing yard total in 3 out of 6 games this season, so half of his games. 11 out of 18 in 2024, so more than half of his games in 2024. But he's only gone over that in 1 out of 4 career games against Detroit. So, can he do it? Yes. I would personally like better history against this team to feel more comfortable doing it. But I'm a little bit more picky than your average person, especially when it comes to player props. I pretty much have to have all the stars aligned for me to make some player prop picks. But man, I could see him doing it. JB, what do you feel? Do you think Baker Mayfield gets those rushing yards? I mean,
Yeah, I do. I like Baker in it. He shakes and bakes.
yeah, he's been doing pretty good this season. And something else that I'm seeing here, Ivan, is that Tampa Bay does have a slight third down conversion advantage. And it just seems like sometimes that quarterbacks, and I could be wrong, but it seems like to me sometimes that quarterbacks are more open to running the ball on third downs if they need to pick up a few yards and to extend the drive. And the fact that Tampa Bay ranks 14th in the third down conversion percentage and Detroit ranks 20th, so Detroit ranks below average in that situation. I feel like maybe on third downs is where you could see Baker doing that. I mean, something's going to hit for this Lions. One of these props that we've talked about is going to hit for this Tampa Bay Buccaneer offense. I think that's a decent spot there. Once again, my first look would be the receiving yards for wide receivers, since that's Detroit's biggest positional defensive vulnerability. And then once again for Detroit, we've already talked about that the running back receiving yards and receptions. So, but I really do like Amon-Ra St. Brown's history against the Lions. Against Tampa Bay. So, that's about all I got for this game. We can move on to the next game, guys. JB was leaning towards the Tampa Bay Bucks to cover that 6, and I'm leaning towards Detroit minus that 6. Just kind of depends on what kind of price you're willing to pay. If you're looking for a single, I would maybe take that down to 5.5. But 6 is fine too if you're comfortable with a chop. So, and out of both of these games, that would be my most confident pick here. Detroit minus the 5.5. All right, and then do you have any other words on that game, JB? Detroit and Tampa.
No, I don't. Not really. Go Bucks.
Okay, let's move on here. Houston at Seattle. Seattle leads the all-time series 4-1 against Houston, and it's Kenneth Walker's birthday, running back for the Seattle Seahawks. Houston carries a 2-3 record into this game. Seattle carries a 4-2 record into this game. And the line, last that I checked. Once again, in case I didn't mention it, guys, I don't really focus too much on the over-unders on the total points scored in a game. In that Detroit and Tampa Bay game, it's at 53.5. I think it's a popular prop, so we could dive into that a little bit. My natural instincts are telling me that it goes over. It's going to be a high-scoring game. What about you, JB? Do you see that Buccaneers game being high-scoring or lower scoring? Over or under 53.5 total points?
I see it going over.
And, when I'm looking at these teams' history against each other, it looks like the last 3 out of 5 games have gone over that total. So, and then obviously you can look at, against this ATS type of stuff, against the spread. I can give you that guy's information, but that's pretty basic information. Detroit's 4-2 against the spread this season, and Tampa Bay is also 4-2. But to that over, let's see here. Tampa Bay is 4-2 to the over, and Detroit is 3-3 to the over. But yeah, I'd have to lean towards the over on that one. And then the Seattle and Houston game, like I mentioned, it's Kenneth Walker's birthday, the running back for this Seattle Seahawks team. And weather. I'm looking at rotogrinders.com/weather/NFL. I'm seeing that there is a 30% chance of some rain, more likely early in the game than late. Winds are light. So it doesn't look like weather is going to play too much of a factor in these games today. And let's look at the injuries and see who's in, who's out, who's questionable. Christian Kirk, wide receiver for Houston, is out. And that looks like the most notable injury. All right. Now, Uh, I'll just list off who I have for like a passing advantage or who has the rushing advantage and all that stuff, and then I'll get your thoughts on this, JB. So I'm seeing that Seattle has a slight passing advantage in this game. I'm seeing that Houston has a slight rushing advantage in this game. If I were to, try to see which advantage is bigger, um, I would say that Seattle's passing advantage is more significant than Houston's rushing advantage. I'll elaborate on that here in a minute. But Seattle, slight third down conversion advantage, big red zone conversion advantage, slight red zone attempts per game advantage. Seattle, big sacks on the quarterback advantage. The only true advantage that I see for Houston in this game is that they have a slight turnover differential advantage. With that being said, JB, do you think Seattle wins this game by 3+ points, or do you think Houston wins the game or loses by
No,
0?
Seattle wins. Seattle wins this. Just like I said with the Chiefs game, man. Like Chiefs taking it. Like I don't see no competition in it. I don't see Houston doing anything. They're boo boo.
Yeah. But these primetime games have been favoring these underdogs. The dogs have been barking in these primetime games. But here's a spot where I'm taking both the favorites tonight. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I just I see too much information to make me go with the underdogs on this one. But player props. So it's tough for me to pinpoint player props for Seattle because of a couple of reasons. One, Houston's defense has been good this season. They rank 5th best in passing yards allowed per game and 7th best in rushing yards allowed per game. Yeah, I mean, we know that Houston's defense is pretty dang good. And they've also had a bye week. And when I look at how many yards Houston has allowed to running backs, how many receiving yards they've allowed to running backs, how many receiving yards they've allowed to wide receivers. I look at that information, guys, at fantasy.nfl.com, and it's not by a per game basis. It gives me the total of yardage allowed by a team at that specific position throughout the entire year. So it's unfair, to some of these other teams because Houston's had a bye week. So it's tough. It was tough for me to pinpoint defensive vulnerability, but I'll try to identify one here in a second. Let's start with Seattle's, biggest positional defensive vulnerability. So Seattle, they rank 24th in passing yards allowed per game, which isn't good. Their pass defense has been struggling. Their rush defense has been great though, and just the fact that Houston's without Mixon, and they're relying on some other guys in that backfield, I think is big in itself. Houston ranks 16th in rushing yards per game, so they're about average. So I really think Houston's going to have to try to pass the ball against the Seattle defense tonight, which leads me to Seattle's biggest positional defensive vulnerability, which is the receptions allowed to running backs. So, I was looking at Nick Chubb's receiving yards. So Woody Marks, this is his first year in the league, from my understanding, or first time making an impact, right?
Yeah.
So it's, and I say this on all the shows, man, it's tough for me to pinpoint rookie props because I don't have history with them. Okay. But Nick Chubb, I'm looking at his receiving yards
Shut up.
Because I said, Seattle's biggest defensive positional defensive vulnerability is the receptions allowed to running backs, but they actually also rank second worst at receiving yards allowed to running backs. Nick Chubb, over under 7.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this season, 2 out of 8 games in 2024. He's gone over that in 1 out of 1 career games against Seattle. So, I could see Nick Chubb getting there. Not necessarily a spot that I love, but it'd be the first spot that I'd be looking. If I were, trying to find a player prop for tonight's game, something else we can do as well is look at the target share for Houston. Nick Chubb leads the running back corp in target share with 10 total targets. Woody Marks has 9 total targets. So it looks like Nick Chubb may be the more favorable option. But, Nick Chubb is tied for 5th on the entire team in target share. So I don't think he's going to get a significant, workload in the passing game. But if he can catch 1 or 2 passes, he can definitely get over that 7.5 receiving line. But another concern that I have with that is the fact that Seattle ranks 4th best in opponent yards per completion. So that's pretty crazy, right? You rank 24th, so you rank near the bottom of the league, getting close in passing yards allowed per game, but you're limiting each time a team is completing a pass on Seattle, they're making teams hit them with receptions. Teams are not picking up big gains through the air against Seattle. They're just, picking them apart a little bit. Once again, Seattle ranks 4th best in opponent yards per completion. So, but that Nick Chubb receiving line, I think, is small enough for him to get that. And then receptions for Nick Chubb. I think they were 1.5 earlier at Plus Chicken, plus 116 on the book that I'm looking at. He's gone over that in 3 out of 5 games this season. So he's had 2+ receptions in 3 out of 5 games this season. Last season, only 1 out of 3, 6, 8 total games. And then against the Seahawks, I got to find what year he played Seattle real quick. Nick Chubb against Seattle. Oh, I think it was his rookie year is when he played. Or, when he played Seattle. Or maybe it's his second year here. 5 receptions that he had for 17 total yards. So, but that was a long time ago. His role has changed. So, let's answer this question here. Let's look what Ivan has to say here. CJ 15.5 rushing yards. JSN longest reception 27.5, and I'm on Woody Marks 29.5 rushing yards. Am I cooked, guy? Okay. So let's dive into it, man. CJ Stroud 15.5 rushing yards. Seattle didn't rank in the top 10 or bottom 10 in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks before the week started, so they're about average. CJ 15.5 rushing yards. CJ Stroud game log is what I'll check up here. Rushing yards. CJ Stroud is wow. He's gone over that in 4 out of 5 games this season. So that's looking good there, Ivan. 4 to 5 games this season. Good current history. What about in 2024? How many times did he go over that line? So we're looking for 16 or more yards. Rushing yards 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games out of 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17, 18, 19. So that could be maybe a little bit better, but not significant enough to get steered away from it. And then, has he ever played against Seattle in his career? No. So it's tougher for me to call when a player doesn't have any history. But I would, you may have your reasons why you like it. I think another big factor is how many yards is Seattle allowing per rush attempt to opposing teams. Another good statistic would be how many yards, not just to teams, but how many opponent rushing yards per attempt to Seattle, specifically allowing to quarterbacks. And, we can, if you want, we could look to see who Seattle, have they played any mobile quarterbacks, right? Looks like Trevor Lawrence, Baker, Kyler.
Yeah, they play quite a few of them.
So I'm kind of interested to see how they defended against those guys specifically. So let's go take a look in that. Because I don't want to just say, yeah, I like it, Ivan, or yeah, I don't like it, Ivan. I want to give you some statistics here. Okay, so I'm looking at the box score against Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence had 3 carries for 9 rushing yards against Seattle. Makes me wonder why he didn't run the ball. Baker, 5 carries for 15 rushing yards. Yikes. And these were competitive games that they were in. Kyler Murray, 5 carries for 41 rushing yards. So, other than that, I'm going to move on to a different prop. I could see him hitting that, but, maybe you have your own reasons why you like it, but hopefully, that information helps you out. Okay. And then JSN longest reception, 27.5. Not something that I necessarily, specialize in, but yeah, let's look into it, man. Since you're asking a question, which we appreciate questions, absolutely. And if you're not asking questions, that's okay. If you're just tuning in, chilling back, we appreciate you being here too. But we're going to answer these questions as best as we can. So what we're going to do here is this is going to be kind of crazy. We are going to look at Jackson Smith's game log. JB, do you have anything to say on this game? Because I'm looking up some interesting stuff here. So, I mean, dude, JSN's been absolutely shredding it this year, Ivan. And the fewest yards that he had for a reception in any game this season was 36. That was his longest reception. Let me try to rephrase it. His longest reception in week 1 was 40. Week 2 was 43, 45, 36, 53, 61. So I think something else to look into is Houston allowing explosive passing plays. I'm seeing that Houston, before the week started, ranked 13th in best in the NFL in opponent yards per completion. So they just are slightly above average in that regard. But I feel like some of these teams are maybe allowing fewer yards per completion that JSN has faced. I'm going to try to look that up real quick. I'm going to look up to see who JSN has played and what they rank in opponent yards per completion. All right. So San Francisco, they played in week 1. They ranked 17th. Pittsburgh, they ranked 16th. New Orleans, they ranked 25th. Arizona, they rank 8th, which is better than Houston's opponent right now. After Arizona already played a game this week, but then Arizona and Houston are right there in opponent yards per completion. And JSN That was his. That was the game where he had the reception. That was the fewest yardage out of any game this season. I don't even know how to phrase that. His longest reception in the game against Arizona was the smallest, longest reception out of all the games that he's played in this season. And Arizona and Houston are very similar in opponent yards per completion. Wide receiver yards. I don't want to get too focused on just that, but I hope that helps you out a little bit there, man. I could see JSN getting that, but another factor though is how many receiving yards are Arizona allowing to wide receivers compared to Houston? Houston ranks 5th best in passing yards allowed per game. One would think that maybe Seattle will have a little bit more difficult time passing against the Houston defense. But let me go check where Arizona ranked at the beginning of the week. Arizona ranked 28th, right, before the week started in passing yards allowed per game. And they ranked to wide receivers, they were average in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. So, I mean, I think this is his tallest task, Ivan, but he's been balling out. I could see him getting it. I don't see anything that makes me say, no, Ivan, don't take that prop. All right. And I feel like, for the most part, man, I feel like good offense it seems like it usually overpowers good defense. I know some games, good defense, especially back in the day with like Ray Lewis and those Baltimore Ravens, there was nobody getting past that defense. I mean, they won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer, but I think there was a game.
Yeah.
There was a game earlier this year. It was like the number 1 ranked rushing offense versus the number 1 ranked rushing defense, and the number 1 ranked rushing offense just ran all over them. So, what do you? And then let's see. Woody Marks, 29.5 rushing yards. Tough for me to call those rookie player props, Ivan, but Seattle ranks 2nd best in rushing yards allowed to running backs. Seattle's ranked 2nd best in rushing yards allowed per game. They are not giving up big gains whenever teams are running the ball against them. I'm concerned about that one more than the other ones, the Woody Marks one. Sorry, JB. I kind of just took over there for a second. What are your thoughts on this game, man?
I don't know, man. Where was I at with it? Shoot. Seattle is just, man, defensively they're just better. Not in the turnover differential, but points per game as well. They're better yards per game. Time of possession is where they lack, though. But I don't see that hurting them. I see Seattle taking this pretty easily. I don't think the Texans really scare anybody, at least as of right now. I don't know what's wrong with this team, but yeah. I mean, you locked it in. I mean, pretty much. I can't really top that, or even what I mean. Like JSN's been doing his thing. I see him going off. Maybe a little bit of Milrow, or not Milrow, but Robinette. Walker. They got Cup out there.
That's somebody that I was sort of looking to target is Cooper Kupp over the 38.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in 2 out of 2 career games against Houston. I think
they're ranked 10th in turnover total defensive interceptions, and they're 12th with +1 total turnover differential. Whereas Seattle's -1 at 17th. So I mean, they can obviously do a little bit better of a job on defense than Seattle can, it seems. But I just the Texans got some problems, man. I just don't.
Yeah, I think not only do I think, but the statistics seem that way too.
Yeah.
It seems like Seattle's offense outweighs Seattle's offense versus Houston's offense outweighs Houston's defensive advantage versus Seattle's defensive advantage. And one spot where Seattle really separates from Houston is passing yards per game. And then in regards to rushing yards per game, they're pretty close. Houston's been doing better this season, but Seattle's defense has been allowing fewer rushing yards per game. If Houston wins this game, I feel like they absolutely have to attack Seattle's 24th ranked passing yards allowed per game defense. Do you guys trust CJ Stroud? Is the question.
Yeah.
And, I did mention that Seattle has a big sacks on the quarterback advantage. So that was a big problem with Houston last season. I don't know if you guys remember that, but CJ Stroud got sacked a ton. Looks like they've cleaned it up a little bit this year, but they're still below average. Houston ranks 20th in quarterback sacks allowed per game, and Seattle ranks third best in the NFL in team sacks per game. So I think that's going to be, problematic for CJ Stroud tonight. He's a little bit older now, a little bit wiser, but what is this? His third year?
Mm-hmm.
Typically with younger quarterbacks, that pressure means more. It's tougher for younger quarterbacks, when they have a weak offensive line and the defensive line is just beating up their offensive line. It's tough on those young quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if CJ Stroud has the experience yet to weather the storm of Seattle pressuring him a lot tonight. And I don't know if he has the weapons, with Christian Kirk being out of this game, that's another weapon down, along with Mixon. So, if Houston was at full strength, yeah, sure. Maybe they do take this one. But like that last game, Detroit and Tampa Bay, I feel like Houston needs to be at full strength to beat this Seattle team in Seattle, which is what nicknamed the 12th man, right? So it's really a 12-11 football game here.
Hadn't really been a 12th man in quite a while, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're 4-2 this year. Look, Seattle lost by 3 points to Tampa Bay, and they only lost by 4 points to San Francisco in week 1. They had a double-digit victory against Pittsburgh, New Orleans, squeaked out a win against Arizona, beat Jacksonville by 8. So, Trevor Lawrence, he's been in the league for how long? And I'm kind of interested to see.
Quite a while. 5 years, 4 years.
So kind of about the same amount as CJ Stroud, I feel like. Maybe a little bit longer. Trevor Lawrence. Let's just go see real quick. I just 1, 2, 3. This looks like his 5th year. This is CJ Stroud's 3rd year. I'm just kind of interested to see, how many times did Trevor Lawrence get sacked? He got sacked 7 times by this Seattle defense. And if I look at team sacks or QB sacks allowed per game, type that in my search engine here. I'm looking at QB sacks allowed per game. Jacksonville ranks right there with near Houston. Now Jacksonville's played 1 or 2 more games more than Houston. I think 2 games now, but on a per game basis, they're pretty similar. So I wouldn't be surprised to see C.J. Stroud get sacked a few times tonight. I mentioned that I would be kind of looking for Cooper Kupp player props. You know what really impresses me about this Seattle team is nobody calls a higher percentage of rushing plays before the week started. Nobody calls a higher percentage of rushing plays than Seattle, yet they rank fourth in passing yards per game. That just shows you how efficient that they have been.
Yeah.
You don't see that a whole lot where teams call a ton of rushing plays and rank fourth in passing play or passing yards per game. I think last year one of the teams to have those type of numbers were the Detroit Lions. And Sam Darnold, from my understanding, he's been kind of just balling out. Am I wrong, JB?
Yeah, he's been doing his thing. People, Moss, he's really, I mean, he's not, he's happier that they got rid of boy and got Darnold, you know what I'm saying, than keeping Geno.
And we can also look at
So
common opponents, guys. Common opponent here and a common environment. Houston played at Jacksonville in week 3 and lost 17-10. Seattle played them at Jacksonville last week and beat them by 8, 20-12. So, there's one common opponent that these guys had. They both barely lost to Tampa Bay. And that looks like about it. But what else do we have here? Yeah, JSN, he's just been on another level. It was tough for me to identify a weakness in this Houston defense in regards to player props. But looks like Houston, if I'd be looking at something, I'd be looking to target receiving yards for wide receivers for Seattle. Receptions, Seattle Seahawk reception, tight end receptions is so who's their tight end? AJ Barner receptions is something that I'd be looking at. And maybe Darnold rushing yards. It seems like those are the biggest positional defensive vulnerabilities for Houston, but they have a really good defense,
yeah.
And I would have to lean towards. I naturally feel like this game is going under. I don't know if the game last night went under. I was feeling like it was going under. I'm not as good at the over under stuffs. The over under stuff or the total points scored in a game. But I just, my instincts are telling me that the Detroit game goes over and this Houston Seattle game is more defensive. Is that how you're feeling too, JB?
Yeah, I definitely am a little bit more defensive. I think that both sides could struggle offensively, but I think Seattle pulls it out at the end.
I'm looking at the over under. Houston's 1-4 to the over, so they've been their games have been going under this season, and then the Seattle Seahawks are 3-3 to the over, so they're 500 in that regard. And then you could look at the history between these teams and see how many times they've had 42 or more total points in a game. It kind of concerns me that we both like Seattle in this game, which is why I maybe think Houston can pull off the upset here. I feel more confident in that than the Buccaneers. It seems, and I'd really like maybe Charby in on this show too. I wonder which way he leans. It seems like whenever all three of us agree on a team in a primetime game, we're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the statistics on that, but I've been good on primetime games this season. But the games that I've lost, it seems like we've all been on that team.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, I'm sticking by my story here. I like Seattle in this game on that -3, Detroit minus the 5.5 or 6. My favorite player prop of the night is Jared Goff over the 260.5 passing yards. And my next favorite player prop is going to be the David Montgomery over 8.5 receiving yards. Third favorite player prop is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs over 3.5 receptions. Fourth favorite is going to be probably the Jahmyr Gibbs over the receiving yards, and then Montgomery over those receptions. I also think Amon-Ra St. Brown going over the 74.5 receiving yards is a good look, and or anytime touchdown. I think, statistically, those are the props that make the most sense. And I don't feel as confident in player props in this game. So maybe it's for you guys that like to target unders in player props. This Seattle Houston game is the way to go. I don't have the history on this game to make comfortable decisions about player props. It feels like the game last night, dude. There were only 2 touchdown scores in that game last night. I'm getting those same vibes in this game. Only 2 touchdown scores in that game, and I believe that game that score was relatively low scoring. What was the final score in that game? 20-10. I feel like that same type of game here in this Houston at Seattle game. So, but if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to let us know. I think Nico Collins, especially with Christian Kirk being out, could be a player worth looking into. Nico Collins. I can't get off the air without mentioning Nico Collins, especially since Christian Kirk is out. Nico Collins ranks first on the team in target share. Dalton Schultz ranks second on the team in target share. And then it's going to be, with Christian Kirk being out, it's going to be Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver for Houston. Be a sleepy player here. He has an 86% catch rate. Jaden Higgins is tied with Nick Chubb in target share at 5th place on this team. But with Christian Kirk being out tonight, they would be tied for 4th. And, Xavier Hutchinson has 2 touchdowns this season, guys. 2 touchdowns. Nico only has 3. And I'm looking at this, and, there's not a clear touchdown scorer for this Houston team. So if you're looking for maybe a sleepy touchdown score, let's see maybe the Xavier Hutchinson. 86% catch rate. I like his targets that he's been getting. And then Jaden Higgins, if you want to get a little bit sleepier. He does have a touchdown this season. Jalen Noel, 71% catch rate. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, and in the Seattle-Houston game, I don't know. I guess my favorite player prop is going to be the Nick Chubb receiving yards, maybe Stroud passing yards, Cooper Kupp receiving yards. It's the way I'd be leaning in that game. Well, any other thoughts on this one, JB?
No. I'd say I'm not moved by the Texans, and I'm not moved by the Detroit Lions either.
Yeah, I'm not moved by them either. I'm not moved by the Texans, and I am not moved by Tampa Bay, but I am kind of moved by Tampa Bay. I think they're a good team. I think they've been doing great this season.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, guys, we have NBA starting tomorrow, and I can't wait for it. I think I'll do a live. I mean, it would only be proper to do an NBA show for tomorrow. We got the Rockets at Thunder, Warriors at Lakers. NBA is back. I like to, talk about analytics in NBA. So it's very tough. It's much more tough at the start of the season because all we're going off of is what happened last season for the most part. I mean, The current data is definitely important, so different players on different teams with different coaches, and but I feel I'll be on here tomorrow and I'll do an NBA show. We got a 2-game slate. That's all I got for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining today. JB, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, speaking of not being moved over on those guys, man, some ways I am moved is the Not Move podcast shop, right? You got the QR code up in the top left-hand corner of the screen. You just go ahead and scan that deal. It'll take you to our store where we have all of our merch, all of our some jerseys up there. We got hats, hoodies, mouse pads, phone cases, baby clothing. I mean, you name it, we got it. If we don't have it, let us know. We'll put it in there. You sign up for a newsletter. You can get they got deals with Twitch on there, as well as you got the Not Move promo. The promo Not Moved. Use it in the shop at checkout. Get 10% off of your purchase store wide. That's in the Not Move podcast shop.fourthwall.com. Okay. I'm actually going to drop the link right here in the chat as well. So it goes out to everybody on all networks. Boom. This guy right there. Might get rid of that last backslash, but other than that. But we have all our affiliations down there. If you scroll down to the bottom, shout out to MLB shop, NFL shop, Open Goal, Walmart.com, as well as BetUS, MyBookie.ag. You guys can make deposits on there. Again, our links. You go down, you click, it takes you right to where we got it. We got some of them we haven't put up yet. We're updating the site just weekly, man.
Yep, just a work in progress,
Yep.
But yeah, there's some great stuff in that store. Great promos. By the way, JB, are you going to be hosting a show over on TT tonight?
Yep. Tonight, doubleheader, Monday Night Football. I know the time's going to be spaced out a little bit differently, but we're doing the same thing we do every Thursday, Sunday night, and Monday Night Football. We host the NFL show, so we'll be over there. Stop by. We do giveaways. Southgate's got his parlays. You tap in there. Start here though. This is where you start. It's before the show. It's before Southgate's ready. Southgate's also got his subscriptions. I know the price just now went up because if you didn't tap in yesterday, the last Sunday, your price is up 50% now. He's proven. He's got 5 people up in there right now. His stats are proven how he picks. People win every week. You're not just subjected to football either. You get every pick that he gets, and there you go. You got your picks. That being said, though, fantasy football will be coming up this week. We got WWE on later today. We're gonna have we got a couple more shows. I mean, we got shows every week, man. We got Pittsburgh Steelers shows gonna be popping on. We got to get the Broncos gonna be on. Chiefs show is gonna be on. NASCAR will be firing up, I assume, here in the next couple of days. NHL, like it's better said, NBA, we'll be firing that up on as well, touching over the league, what's going on. I know if you guys are really excited about that. Yeah, man.
I just want to say a couple things too, man. if you guys are looking for picks and you don't want to listen to a show for this long for your football picks or whatever, I do this for free. I used to sell picks. The reason why I stopped is so I can talk freely on the air like this for you guys. And I love talking about sports. I understand some of you may not have the time to listen to all of this. In that case, maybe look into getting that subscription from Southgate, and maybe you want to do both. Maybe you want to listen to the show and get the subscription over there, and not just listen to me, but there are other members within the Not Move podcast that have very valuable information that I don't cover. They may be talking about cover 2 defenses, cover 3 zone, how this quarterback. Everybody has different angles, and I think whenever you add all of that up, the better chance that you have at success through the long term, right? We could all hit and win any given night with luck, but if you're doing this on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, I mean I think it's really important to zone in. So
Facts. Lock in or log out. That's why we say that here, Not Move.
Yeah. And that's about all I have to say about that. Any other things for you, JB?
No, yeah, we'll be live tonight showing the show or showing the games. I really don't got nothing, man. I just, tap into that Not Move podcast, shop.fourthwall.com.
Thank you, Ivan.
Right there in the link. Appreciate you, Ivan.
Yeah, Ivan, and you guys don't know how much it means to us for you guys to be here for these shows. We work for you guys, that's
Right.
why we're here. We're not here to do this for ourselves necessarily, but we're also here for you guys. And, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. We really appreciate you guys hitting that subscribe button, sharing the live, engaging with us in chats. Even if you're just hanging out, we appreciate you too. Yeah. That's all I got now.
All right, bet, Ivan. We'll see you there, man. Well, betters, as always, I'm not moved, man.
I'm not moved.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.